Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And in the past, I've highlighted movies, TV shows, and books that I felt were ahead of their time. Because a movie like Megamind or a show like Daria is great in its own right, but the story that unfolds and the characters within it, they really do reflect a message that feels more relevant now than it did when they came out. Now, what counts as relative is often subjective and fleeting, and with hindsight can come perspectives that were always there, you just didn't realize or appreciate the depth until much later. But if the stories and characters are strong and memorable enough, it just makes you appreciate them even more. And for me personally, I feel like this concept is perfectly reflected in the movie Legally Blonde, a 2001 romantic comedy that took a different approach to both romance and comedy. And through its main character, Elle Woods, the most unapologetically feminine woman you can possibly imagine, we get a remarkable female character that has only gotten more lovable and endearing with time. And with the Barbie movie having made $1 billion at the box office in 2023, it feels like the time is right to revisit this wonderful cinematic gem from the early 2000s. Because in my humble opinion, Elle Woods really paved the way for Barbie, and she set a high bar for female characters, one that most still struggle to match. Now, before I go any further, I want to make a few things clear. I am not making this video to rant, whine, or criticize how many modern female characters are portrayed in popular media. There are already too many channels full of assholes, grifters, bigots, and liars whining about how feminism quote-unquote ruined their favorite franchise. And make no mistake, the people behind these channels are not serious people and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Now, having said that, I'll just say that for this video, I want to keep the focus on Elle Woods, her story, and why Legally Blonde works so well. Because this movie offers real insight that goes beyond the plot and the aesthetics. Insights that can inform us on female characters, femininity, and how to navigate the unfair world around them. And that is worth exploring, because what Legally Blonde does with Elle and her story, it doesn't just embrace her femininity, it actually subverts some common tropes that often undermine other female characters. Now, if you only watch the first 15 minutes of the movie, you might think it was leaning too heavily into some of these overplayed tropes. Because as soon as we meet Elle Woods, she really does come off as the embodiment of every blonde stereotype imaginable. She's cute, she's bubbly, she's outgoing, expressive, and emotionally open to the utmost. She's also part of a college sorority, studying in fashion merchandising of all things. Everything from her smile to her dress sense to her overall demeanor just screams, I'm a blonde in every possible way you can imagine. And since this movie is a romantic comedy, this extends to her love life. Her boyfriend, Warner Huntington III, comes off exactly like the kind of guy you would expect to date a cute blonde. The way he carries himself around Elle is every bit as shallow as you'd expect. Now this framing sets a very particular tone. Everything you assume about cute blondes and the men they date, it's all presented in this colorful, upbeat tone. It's not meant to be overly dramatic or overly serious. This isn't that kind of story. But as soon as the seemingly ideal world is disrupted, we quickly learn that there's so much more to Elle Woods than her hair color or her fashion sense. She mistakenly believes that Warner was going to propose to her. And in the spirit of those same stereotypes I mentioned, she thought this was how it was supposed to play out, and she was ready to embrace it fully. But then, much to her shock and horror, Warner breaks up with her. And he's not kind about it either. He basically shatters all her idyllic assumptions, saying she just wasn't serious enough. It comes off as an indirect way of him saying she was a fun fling to him, but nothing more. Now, he's leaving for Harvard, where he intends to pursue more serious endeavors with serious people. Now keep that word in mind, because it does come up a lot over the course of this movie. And it's a central theme to what makes Elle Woods so endearing. But initially, Elle is just devastated. She really did believe that she and Warner were going to get their fairy tale ending. And being told that she's not a serious person just made it so much worse. But after lamenting over this news for a bit, Elle takes it upon herself to prove Warner wrong. She seeks to transfer to Harvard, show that she's more than just a bubbly sorority girl, and win him back. Now that resolve in and of itself is a subversion of the many dynamics within this movie, because it establishes that Elle is not the kind of person to just cry over an ex-boyfriend. After she's shed her tears, she's intent on doing something about it, and it's not just about winning him back. Elle really did take that unserious label personally. She knows on some levels that she's a bubbly blonde, She's even aware that comes with certain assumptions and stereotypes. But her recourse isn't to abandon that or even complain about it. Because Elle Woods is a woman of action, and she's not going to let these tropes hold her back. That alone makes her very easy to root for, because you never get the sense that Elle is making excuses for her situation, or that the world is so unfair and there's nothing a cute blonde like her can do about it. Her world was indeed devastated by this breakup, but she's going to do something about it, both for herself and for the man she's hoping to win back. How she goes about this is quite remarkable. When applying to Harvard, she really doesn't abandon her blonde persona. She doesn't try to become whatever she thinks Harvard or Warner want her to be. She is still completely and unapologetically herself. Now that certainly gets a reaction from the Harvard admissions team, who come off as uptight and snooty as you'd expect. Like Warner, they see a pretty face and a cute body, but their superficial reactions also obscure the fact that Elle actually puts work into this. She actually studies for the law school admissions test. She doesn't try to cheat. She doesn't try to do any special favors for teachers or administrators. Elle is on a personal mission to prove the Warner Huntingtons of the world wrong about her. And that means going through the process, even when others don't take her seriously. And, much to their shock, especially Warner's, Elle is accepted into Harvard. She even managed to score highly on the LSATs, something she jokes about as though it were hard. While that is played for comedy, it also makes an important distinction that sets the tone for the rest of this movie. It reminds us that Elle Woods is legitimately smart. She's not just a cute blonde seeking to leverage her looks. She has a real, legitimate capacity for learning new things, even things that are complex like the law. But she only really starts to shine when she begins applying that knowledge, a process that also involves her embracing the femininity that she loves to exude. This puts Elle on a personal journey, one in which Warner quickly becomes an afterthought. At first, she still struggles to be taken seriously, and on a few occasions, the uptight Harvard crowd messes with her, from lying to her about a costume party to denigrating her ideal, non-cynical approach to the law. She basically has to navigate a world full of cold, dispassionate people. These people may carry themselves as dignified and ambitious, but when you see them around Elle, they all just come off as ignorant and shallow. But these setbacks still don't stop her. Being criticized and not taken seriously doesn't keep her from attending classes and becoming a legitimate student of the law. She might rub her professors the wrong way at times, but she does start demonstrating a real passion for the subject. She even becomes more ambitious, applying for and being accepted for an internship with one of her professors. Granted, part of that was Elle wanting to show up Vivian Kensington, Warner's new girlfriend. But once she gets the position, that becomes secondary. She really does take the opportunity seriously, more so than anyone expects her to. She even ends up being uniquely qualified for this internship, because part of it involves helping on a real murder case involving Brooke Wyndham, a popular fitness instructor who happened to be a former member of Elle's sorority. And Elle, rather than playing the part of the cold, dispassionate lawyer, decides to relate to her client on a more personal level. This not only earns her a lot of trust from Brooke, it also helps her find out for certain that she is innocent of the charges. But she can't reveal why, as it would require her to break a promise, and law student or not, that is not something Elle is willing to do. This definitively sets her apart from the rest of the legal team. It's also what earns the attention and admiration of Emmett Richmond, a junior partner and one of the few who actually dares to take Elle Woods seriously. And while she eventually becomes Elle's new love interest, he actually doesn't play that big a role in how her story plays out. In fact, the romance in this movie ends up being relatively minor. Yes, it's still there, and Elle's perspective on romance changes a great deal as she learns more about Warner and what it actually means to be in a relationship. But the true substance of the story revolves around her navigating this world, finding new purpose, and staying true to herself every step of the way. And it's here where we see the true strengths of Elle Woods and her uniquely feminine spirit. Because beyond just being a student at Harvard Law, beyond just being able to study, learn, and thrive in such an academic environment, Elle also has to contend with the less glamorous parts of being a cute blonde. Even in a romantic comedy that never tries to get too dark, it doesn't hide from these issues. And if Legally Blonde has a low point for Elle, it's not when Warner breaks up with her. It's when Professor Callahan, the same professor who gave her this internship, tries to seduce her. This suddenly shatters the idea that she actually earned this position. Vivian basically feeds into this notion, and it sends Elle spiraling for a while. But again, she does not let herself linger in despair, nor does she use this as an excuse to lash out or question who she is. Elle never even contemplates changing her persona for the sake of others. She's girly, she's bubbly, and she loves wearing pink, and even if that earns her distressing labels, she refuses to abandon this part of herself. And if anything, her darkest hour ends up reaffirming why this identity matters so much to her, more so than any internship, and more so than any romantic partner. Ultimately, she returns to Harvard to finish the case, and the way she goes about it is just so wonderfully fitting. Because Elle doesn't just win the case for Brooke, she actually channels many of those blonde stereotypes to make her points in a courtroom, even uncovering the real murderer in the process. This triumph is a testament to Elle Woods as a person as well as her abilities. She can be true to herself and be a capable lawyer. She can maintain her ideals, her identity, and her commitments to herself. She can even face setbacks and heartbreak, but they don't have to define her, and she doesn't have to change because of them. That's what makes her speech at the end of this movie all the more uplifting. That also makes it very satisfying when Warner, after watching her win the case, tries to win her back. But Elle, having seen just what a shallow asshole he was, rightly rejects him and ends up with Emmett. And it's not just because Emmett is a nice guy compared to Warner. Unlike almost everyone else throughout this movie, Emmett saw beyond the blonde hair, the bright clothes, and the bubbly demeanor. He actually takes a chance on her. He listens to her. He even helps inspire her. He really doesn't say much, but he doesn't have to. His actions, much like Elle's, reveal so much more. In terms of demeanor and personality, Elle Woods is still very much the same person she was at the end of the movie as she was when it started. But along the way, we see that there's so much more to her than what she outwardly shows. We also see just how capable she is while still embracing her femininity to the utmost. At times, she still has to navigate our shared notions of a cute, bubbly blonde. She has to convince everyone around her, as well as us, the audience, to take her seriously. But she successfully proves that being unapologetically feminine doesn't mean being at the mercy of those stereotypes. She even proved that there's real value to having faith in people, to embrace, connect, and cherish them with open affection. And she proved all of this beyond any reasonable doubt. For that reason and so many more, Elle Woods in Legally Blonde will always have a special place in my heart. And as the years go by and we see other female characters emerge, we can further appreciate the standards for femininity that Elle Woods so perfectly embodies. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.